Welcome to Housing After 60. I am Charles Odell. On this site, we analyze the math and the reality of senior housing to find your best options. Let's get started.
Welcome to another deep dive from Housing After 60. Today we are looking at the $70,000 zoning trap after 60 based on our latest research at housingafter60.com. We're really going to strip away all that lifestyle marketing fluff today and just look at the cold, hard numbers behind alternative retirement housing. Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. We'll be looking at the downsizing dream trap, tiny homes versus permanent ADUs, the real 10-year financial picture, hidden zoning and infrastructure costs, designing for long-term accessibility, and finally, protecting your retirement equity. All right, let's start with Section 1, the downsizing dream trap. So moving into a tiny home or maybe a backyard cottage, it sounds like an absolute dream for a lot of us, right? I mean, why wouldn't it? It can completely wipe out a traditional mortgage. Plus, if you throw in one of those highly efficient mini-split heat pump systems, you can easily drop your monthly utility bills to well under $100. That kind of predictability, it's absolutely huge when you're balancing a budget on a fixed income like Social Security. But, and this is a big but, you've got to understand the reality hiding right behind those pretty numbers. Your projected return on investment, it literally vanishes into thin air if your backyard requires, say, $25,000 just in utility trenching and civil engineering. Because no, you can't just run an extension cord and a garden hose from the main house. You need real code-compliant utility hookups. And that, honestly, is where the dream often hits a very, very expensive brick wall. Moving on to part 2. Tiny homes versus permanent ADUs. Listen, there is a massive physical difference between a mobile unit that's built basically like an RV and a permanent residential structure. An ADU, or accessory dwelling unit, sits on a permanent concrete slab. It actually relies on continuous soil support, extending right below the frost line so your drywall doesn't crack every winter. A tiny home on wheels, on the other hand, it concentrates all its structural weight on a steel trailer chassis and axles. It literally has to withstand incredible lateral wind shear going 60 miles an hour down the highway, which means it needs heavy-duty steel hurricane straps. Structurally speaking, they are entirely different beasts. That brings us to Section 3, the 10-year financial reality. The cold financial logic here is just undeniable. Basically, a tiny home on wheels depreciates like a pickup truck, while a foundation-bound ADU appreciates like real estate. Think about it. If you sell a $300,000 primary home and put $100,000 into a tiny home on wheels, well, legally, that is personal property. It loses value every single year. But if you take that exact same $100,000 and put it into a permanent microhome, it appreciates as real estate right alongside historical averages. So the absolutely crucial point here is that by choosing a permanent foundation over a wheeled trailer, you prevent nearly $30,000 from just disappearing into pure asset depreciation over a 10-year period. That is a massive chunk of your retirement net worth saved simply by choosing the right structural foundation. As we noted on the site, building an ADU allows you to pool familial wealth and keep your capital inside your family estate, rather than draining hundreds of thousands of dollars into corporate care facilities. I mean, look at these 10-year cumulative cash outflows. A traditional senior living community, that could cost over $500,000 and leave you with zero equity. An assisted living facility is even worse, over $800,000. But a backyard ADU keeps your out-of-pocket costs under $200,000, all while building an appreciating asset for your family. Next up, number 4, hidden zoning and infrastructure costs. Adding a permanent structure to your property triggers a supplemental tax reassessment. Using what's called a blended cost approach, your county tax assessor is going to determine exactly what your new ADU adds to your property's value. So for example, a $60,000 increase in assessed value could cost you an extra $900 every single year if your tax rate happens to be 1.5%. You absolutely must factor these recurring taxes into your retirement budget from day one. And then you have to navigate this whole maze of bureaucratic hurdles. Your city might cap total lot coverage at 40%. Well, if your primary house already takes up 38% of your lot, you are legally barred from building. Doesn't matter how much yard space you think you have. You've also got to deal with strict minimum room sizes just to get a certificate of occupancy. You might need engineered grading plans if your yard has a slope. And don't get me started on the exorbitant city impact fees that can top $15,000 before you even pull a single building permit. If you want the full technical breakdown, check the post on housingafter60.com, where we analyze these exact 2026 national averages and show exactly why permanent ADU construction triggers such heavy municipal development fees.
Now, yes, the tiny home on wheels has a significantly lower initial build cost, roughly $36,000, compared to $106,000 for an ADU. But remember, that tiny home still requires a legal lot to park on, and it depreciates. The ADU requires heavy upfront capital, sure, but it becomes a permanent wealth-building asset.
Okay, Section 5. Designing for long-term accessibility.
You know those trendy tiny homes with the cute little sleeping lofts you have to reach by climbing a steep vertical ladder? Yeah, those are a total disaster if you ever develop arthritis or need a knee replacement. True aging-in-place design requires mandatory universal accessibility features. We're talking single-level layouts, zero-threshold entryways, 36-inch wide doorways so a walker or wheelchair can easily pass through, and reinforced wall studs capable of actually supporting 500-pound grab bars. You have to ensure you aren't trapping yourself in an overcrowded obstacle course. Let's also look at how this factors into the very walls of your home. As detailed on the Housing After 60 website, you really need proper thermal mass engineering. Because a microhome heats up and cools down so rapidly, a manual J load calculation is absolutely required to ensure your HVAC system doesn't just short cycle and burn itself out prematurely. Furthermore, closed-cell spray foam insulation is critical here. It acts as a built-in vapor barrier which prevents moisture condensation and toxic mold growth in those tight, unvented microspaces. So you really have to ask yourself, is the interior layout you're looking at going to support your physical health over the next decade? If you develop chronic conditions that require medical equipment or in-home care nurses, you need adequate square footage. You've got to design your space for the mobility you might have at 75, not just the agility you have right now at 62. Finally, number 6, protecting your retirement equity. Building on family land is a beautiful, beautiful way to create a multi-generational household, but please do not rely on casual verbal agreements. You need a formal life estate deed or a long-term ground lease drafted by a proper real estate attorney. This legally protects your investment from being forcibly liquidated if your adult child unfortunately faces a bankruptcy or a divorce. You must secure your legal right to occupy that space for the rest of your life. And before committing a single dollar to this, you must conduct a proper zoning audit at your local municipal planning desk. You need to ensure your specific R1 residential parcel actually allows these alternative structures. Don't just assume that because it's your backyard, you can build whatever you want. Review the specific accessory dwelling unit ordinances for your particular zone first. Ultimately, navigating these senior housing transitions requires looking completely past the emotional sales pitches and focusing strictly on the bottom line numbers. Whether you choose the mobility of a tiny home or the permanent equity of an ADU, you've got to weigh the upfront fees against the long-term maintenance, verify your zoning, and realistically plan for your future medical needs. Before you downsize, ask yourself, are you buying a depreciating lifestyle fantasy, or are you building an accessible, appreciating fortress for your final chapters? Thanks for watching. For more guides and the full article on this topic, head over to housingafter60.com. Don't forget to check the links in the description below.
Your peace and enjoyment in retirement depends on the right housing strategy. Visit housingafter60.com for our full analysis and cost transparency guides. I will see you in the next video.